There is a hunger within you, deeper than any hunger for food, more insatiable than any thirst for water. It gnaws at your soul, an invisible longing that nothing in this world has ever truly satisfied. You've felt it before, those restless nights, those moments of silence when everything seems fine on the outside, yet something remains missing. It is not a hunger for material wealth or worldly success. It is a hunger for something eternal, something divine. The world teaches you to chase after things that promise fulfillment, money, relationships, achievements. But have you ever wondered why, no matter how much you attain, there's always a lingering emptiness? It's because the deepest part of you isn't craving anything of this world. It is thirsting for something beyond. And here's the mystery. Those who hunger and thirst for God are the only ones who will ever be truly filled. The more you seek, the more you receive. The more you long for divine presence, the more it floods into your life. But this is not a hunger that weakens you. It is a hunger that strengthens. It is the fire that transforms, the yearning that leads to revelation. This is the moment when everything shifts. This is the moment when you stop seeking in the wrong places and step into the abundance that has been waiting for you all along. Throughout history, the greatest minds, the most enlightened souls, the seekers who have left the deepest impact on the world, have all spoken of this divine hunger. They walked away from riches, power, and fame, not because they despised them, but because they had glimpsed something greater. Moses left the palaces of Egypt for the presence of God. The Buddha abandoned his royal life in search of truth. Jesus fasted in the wilderness, not to weaken himself, but to prepare for the power that would flow through him. They understood what so many fail to realize. There is no greater wealth than divine communion. And yet, the world distracts you at every turn. It whispers that fulfillment is found in possessions, titles, or the approval of others. It tells you to fill the void with things that never last. But look around. Has anyone ever truly found peace in those things? The wealthiest among us still crave more. The most famous still feel unseen. The most powerful still fear losing control. Why? Because they are feeding the wrong hunger. They are trying to satisfy an eternal longing with temporary things. And no matter how much they consume, they are left emptier than before. This is why those who chase after the world remain restless. They wander from one thing to the next, never realizing that what they truly seek isn't outside of them. It is within. The soul knows what the mind often forgets. You were not created to live in scarcity, longing for something just out of reach. You were created to be filled, to overflow with the abundance of divine presence. But here lies the paradox. Abundance does not come from grasping. It comes from surrendering. The moment you let go of the belief that you must struggle, that you must fight and claw for every piece of happiness, is the moment you begin to receive. You have been conditioned to think that security comes from what you can hold, from what you can count, from what you can claim as yours. But divine abundance is not something you own. It is something you align with. It is not something you chase. It is something that finds you when you step into the flow of divine provision. Imagine a river, vast, endless, flowing without effort. It does not fight to move forward. It does not struggle to reach its destination. It simply flows. And because it flows, it nourishes everything in its path. This is the nature of divine abundance. It is not about working yourself to exhaustion or endlessly striving for more. It is about opening yourself to what has already been set aside for you. The moment you realize this, everything changes. The stress of trying to control every outcome fades away. The fear of lack dissolves. You no longer look at life as a series of obstacles to overcome, but as a path already prepared for you. Those who hunger and thirst for God will be filled, not because they have earned it, but because they have aligned themselves with a truth that has always been. But how do you step into this flow? How do you stop striving and start receiving? It begins with recognizing what is real and what is an illusion. The world tells you that wealth is measured by numbers, by possessions, by status. But what good is a full bank account if your soul is empty? What good is success if anxiety is the price you pay? What good is chasing after things that will never truly satisfy? The greatest lie ever told is that you are responsible for carrying the weight of your own provision, but that is not your burden to bear. God did not create you to struggle for what has already been given. He did not place you in this world to scrape by in fear and uncertainty. He placed you here to walk in faith, to trust in the divine abundance that has already been set in motion. This is why those who seek first the kingdom of God never lack. They are not striving for blessings, they are living in them. They are not waiting for provision, they are walking in it. Their wealth is not something they own, it is something they embody. And this is the great secret. Those who stop looking to the world for fulfillment and start looking to God receive what they never even thought to ask for. They find peace where there was once anxiety. They find joy where there was once emptiness. They find a wellspring of abundance flowing into every area of their life because they are no longer seeking from a place of lack, but from a place of divine alignment. This is not just about wealth. This is about an overflow that touches every part of your existence. When you seek God, you do not just receive money. You receive wisdom, guidance, peace. You do not just gain success. You gain clarity, purpose, fulfillment. And so the question is not whether God will provide. The question is whether you will allow yourself to receive. Will you let go of the illusion of control and step into the abundance that has already been promised to you? Will you release the fear of not having enough and embrace the truth that in God you already have everything? Those who hunger and thirst for God will be filled, not tomorrow, not someday, but now. The only thing separating you from this truth is your willingness to believe it. The moment you do, everything changes. The moment you surrender, the river begins to flow, and once it begins, it never runs dry. There is a moment just before dawn when the world is silent. The sky is still dark, the air is still heavy with the night. And yet, something shifts. A whisper of light begins to touch the horizon, and suddenly the night is no longer endless. The morning is coming. This is how divine abundance flows into your life, not all at once, not with the noise and chaos of the world, but with the quiet certainty of the rising sun. You may not see it yet, but it is already on its way. You do not need to chase it. You only need to open your heart and receive. God's provision does not move like the frantic grasping of man. It does not struggle. It does not rush. It does not compete. It simply is. And when you step into its flow, you realize something profound. What you have been seeking has been seeking you all along. But the world will tell you otherwise. It will convince you that success requires toil, that security requires fear, that you must hold on tightly to every opportunity or risk, losing everything. And so people wake up each morning with the weight of anxiety pressing down on their chest, already worried about what they must do, who they must impress, how they will make it through another day. But this is not how you were meant to live. The morning was not given to you so that you could wake up and fear the day. It was given to you as a reminder of new beginnings, of divine provision, of the promise that you are not alone in your journey. And that is why prayer is the most powerful way to begin. Because before you step into the noise of the world, before you let fear whisper lies into your spirit, you must align yourself with the truth. You must declare even before you see it that everything you need is already provided. Give us this day our daily bread. These words are not just a request, they are an affirmation of divine reality. Your provision is not something you must fight for. It is something that is already flowing toward you in perfect measure exactly when you need it. Think of the Israelites in the wilderness. Each morning manna appeared on the ground, just enough for that day. No more, no less. They did not have to hoard it, they did not have to struggle to gather it. They only had to trust that tomorrow it would come again. And yet, how often do we forget this truth? How often do we act as if God's abundance is scarce, as if we must grasp at every opportunity, afraid that if we do not take what we can now, nothing else will come? But divine provision does not work this way. It is not limited. It is not something that can run out. The only thing that stops it is our own unwillingness to trust. And trust is the hardest thing to give when you are used to controlling everything. You have been taught that if you do not push, if you do not force, if you do not worry about every detail, things will fall apart. But what if the opposite were true? What if your constant need to control was the very thing blocking the flow of abundance? What if, instead of striving, you surrendered? Not surrender in the sense of giving up, but surrender in the sense of finally understanding that you were never meant to carry this burden alone, that the weight of your provision, your future, your success, it was never yours to hold. The birds of the air do not sow, they do not reap, they do not store up in barns, and yet they are fed. The lilies of the field do not labor, they do not spin, and yet they are clothed in beauty greater than Solomon in all his splendor. How much more then does God care for you? The delay you fear is not a denial. The waiting you are experiencing is not a punishment. It is preparation. Look at nature. Nothing is rushed. The tree does not strain to grow. The river does not force its way to the ocean. And yet everything reaches its destination. God's timing is perfect. But the question is, will you trust it, or will you let fear push you into action that is rooted not in faith, but in panic? Because there are two ways to move forward in life. One is by force, the other is by flow. Force is exhausting. It is filled with anxiety, with doubt, with the need to make things happen through sheer willpower. But flow is different. Flow moves with divine rhythm. It does not mean you sit and wait passively, doing nothing. It means you listen, you align, and when the time comes, you step forward with faith, knowing that the path has already been made clear. Joseph sat in prison for years before stepping into his destiny. Moses spent decades in the desert before, leading his people to freedom. Jesus waited 30 years before beginning his ministry. Not one of them was being denied their purpose. They were being prepared for it, and so are you. What you are waiting for is not being withheld, it is being arranged. But if you let fear dictate your actions, you may step out of alignment. You may try to force something that was meant to come, naturally. And when you force, you struggle. When you struggle, you doubt. And when you doubt, you block the very thing that was meant for you all along. Faith is not passive. It is active trust. It is knowing, in every fiber of your being, that the provision is already set in motion. So what will you choose? Will you continue to force, to push, to grasp at the illusion of control? Or will you finally let go and move with the current of divine abundance? Because here is the truth. The moment you release the need to control is the moment the blessings start to flow. And when they come, they will come in ways you never expected. Not in the way the world promises, not through stress, not through struggle, but through a grace so overwhelming, so undeniable, that you will finally understand. God's provision was never something you had to fight for. It was something that was waiting for you to receive, and it is already on its way. The moment you surrender to divine abundance, something shifts. You no longer wake up in fear, questioning whether you will have enough. You no longer live in the exhausting cycle of striving and worrying, trying to make everything happen by your own strength. Instead, you step into a flow that is greater than anything you could have orchestrated yourself. But faith is not passive. It is not simply waiting and hoping, doing nothing, expecting blessings to fall into your hands. Faith moves. Faith acts. Faith steps forward not in desperation but in trust. There is a difference between struggling for survival and moving with divine alignment. One is rooted in fear, the fear of losing, the fear of failure, the fear of not being enough. The other is rooted in confidence, in knowing that God has already made a way. Think about it. Every miracle in Scripture required an act of faith. The Red Sea did not part until Moses lifted his staff. The walls of Jericho did not fall until the Israelites marched around them in obedience. The loaves and fish did not multiply until they were lifted in surrender. Divine provision is not an invitation to sit and wait. It is an invitation to step forward without fear. The path does not reveal itself to those who stand still in doubt. It reveals itself to those who walk forward in faith. But faith-filled action is not anxious striving. It is not exhausting yourself, forcing opportunities, pushing beyond your limits in desperation. It is stepping into the direction God has shown you, knowing that what is meant for you cannot be taken away. When you understand this, you move differently. You no longer scramble for opportunities, desperate to seize what you can before it's gone. Instead, you know that what is yours will come at the appointed time. You no longer say yes to things out of fear that nothing better will come. Instead, you wait for the divine alignment that was meant for you. And when you move in faith, the right doors open. Not the ones you forced, not the ones you begged for, but the ones that were always yours. This is why some people struggle endlessly and still feel empty, while others walk in effortless abundance. It is not luck, it is not unfairness, it is alignment. Those who trust, receive. Those who surrender, flow. Those who act in faith, without fear, step into a life where blessings are not something they chase, but something that follows them wherever they go. The moment you stop living in scarcity and start trusting in divine provision, you unlock something powerful. The blessings that have been waiting for you begin to pour in, not because you suddenly became worthy of them, but because you finally became open to receiving. But not everyone will understand. There will be those who question your faith, who look at your peace and mistake it for passivity, who look at your confidence in God's provision and call it foolishness. And when they see your blessings unfold, they will doubt. Some will say you were just lucky. Others will assume you must have had some advantage they didn't. Some will even resent the ease with which your life flows because they do not understand the depth of trust it took to get here. But you do not need their understanding. You do not need their validation. The path God has set for you is not subject to the opinions of those who do not walk it. When God blesses, no one can curse. When God opens doors, no one can shut them. It is easy to let doubt creep in when the world mocks what it does not understand. It is easy to start questioning your own journey when those around you do not see what you see. But faith is not about external approval. It is not about convincing others to believe in what you know is true. Your blessings will speak for themselves. The very people who once doubted will be the ones who later ask how you did it. The ones who once mocked will come seeking the wisdom you have gained. And when that moment comes, you will not need to justify yourself. You will only need to point them to the truth, the same truth that led you here. The fullness of God's provision is not just about money. It is not just about material wealth. It is about living a life where nothing is missing, where every need is met, not just in finances, but in joy, in peace, in purpose. Abundance is not a number, it is a state of being. And when you walk in divine provision, you begin to see the world differently. You stop seeing life as something to be fought against, something to be conquered through struggle and force. You start seeing it as something that unfolds perfectly, as something that has always been set in motion for your highest good. And the best part, you are just getting started. Because once you step into this reality, it does not stop. The blessings keep flowing. The alignment keeps unfolding. The provision keeps coming, not because you have to earn it, but because it is simply the nature of divine abundance. God's timing is not like human timing. It is not based on deadlines or pressure. It is based on the perfect unfolding of all things at the right moment, in the right way. There may have been seasons of waiting, seasons where it felt like nothing was happening, seasons where you questioned whether God had forgotten you. But He did not. He was working. He was preparing, and now the time has come. The doors that were closed are opening. The opportunities that were hidden are revealing themselves. The blessings that seemed delayed are arriving, not a moment too late, not a moment too soon, but exactly when they were meant to. And when you look back, you will realize everything that happened, every delay, every detour, every unexpected turn was leading you here, to this moment, to this reality. You do not have to fight anymore. You do not have to question whether you are worthy. You do not have to live in fear of lack. You are chosen. You are aligned. You are already walking in the abundance that has been yours since the beginning of time. So let go of the last traces of doubt. Release the last remnants of fear. Walk forward with the confidence of someone who knows that their steps are divinely ordered. because from this moment forward, you are not just surviving. You are thriving, and nothing can stop what God has already set in motion.